Hi, everybody. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Gail Singer, founder and president of Circle Lighting. Thanks for joining us virtually today. I am definitely looking forward to the day when we do this in person again. So I'd like to introduce our guests who I'm not really sure really need any introduction, but here goes. Marie Flanigan is an award-winning interior designer whose passion and achievements in design have positioned her as one of the nation's best. A classically trained and practiced architect, Marie unlocks a unique level of depth through her mutual consideration of interior and structure. Her homes revealing the magic that transpires when each is made to augment the other. Her trademark style is evident through the sophisticated use of color, texture, and light. And every home she designs receives her personal signature of timeless elegance and innovative simplicity. Her distinguished designs can be seen in luxury homes and commercial spaces throughout the country, and her work and expertise have been featured by premier publications and websites. She regularly shares her design and lifestyle advice with TV audiences, including her most recent role on HGTV's internationally broadcast series, Property Brothers, Brother versus Brother. She recently launched her new lighting collection with visual comfort, obviously available at circlelighting.com, and I can't even describe how well it's been received, and it's just beautiful. Paloma Contreras is an award-winning interior designer and tastemaker based in Houston, Texas. Paloma's design sensibility is a modern take on traditional style, gravitating towards classic silhouettes and timeless pieces paired with a touch of glamour and an infusion of color. She's developed a reputation for designing beautiful interiors in a broad range of styles, which are executed in a manner that is polished, refined, and effortless. Paloma's interiors are at once timeless yet fresh, balancing attention to the detail and the intersection of form and function to enhance a well-lived life. Paloma has been repeatedly named to the prestigious Elle Decor A-list, recognized as a next wave interior designer by House Beautiful, and named to Luxe Magazine's Gold List. She's been #4 on the Forbes list of top social media influencers in the home category and is one of the top 10 Instagram accounts to follow for interior design. Her work has been featured in numerous publications and recently launched a licensed collection with Williams-Sonoma Home. Her curated retail shop, Paloma & Co., opened in Houston's River Oaks neighborhood in January of 2019. And in 2020, Paloma launched the Style Files podcast, say that 10 times fast, which features thoughtful, engaging conversations with design luminaries. In her free time, Paloma enjoys traveling with her husband, Fabian, and spending time with their sweet dog, Tate. Her new lighting collection with visual comfort, soon to be available at circlelighting.com, is set to launch soon. So stand by from that, and it'll be a lot of fun to see some of the new products that you guys are going to get a sneak peek for today. Steele Marcoux's design education started during her childhood in Atlanta, where she spent many afternoons with her artist mother, browsing through galleries, antique stores, and fabric showrooms. After graduating from Williams College, where Steele studied art history and played on the varsity tennis team, she worked in Washington, D.C. as a reporter before returning to the South to pursue a Master's of Arts in American History at the University of Alabama. She's a veteran of the shelter publishing industry and has served as editor, freelance writer, and producer for numerous brands, and of course is now the editor-in-chief of Veranda. Steele lives in Birmingham, Alabama, where she enjoys cooking for her family, volunteering at her son's schools, playing tennis and golf, walking her dog Sawyer, and now, following in her mother's footsteps, taking her sons to browse through galleries, antique stores, and fabric showrooms. So that's our amazing lineup for today. There'll be a Q&A at the end of the discussion, so please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A section at the bottom of the screen, and we will get to as many as possible. So again, welcome and enjoy, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
Such a kind and generous introduction today. And thank you, Marie and Paloma, two superstars from the design world joining us today to talk about a topic that is essential to every beautiful room and yet so difficult to get right, lighting. So I'm really excited to have you both here today. We're gonna talk about some kind of big picture lighting questions that I have and that I think will be enlightening for our audience. And then we're going to do a brief little sneak peek of your new collection launches for visual comfort at the end before moving into questions, as Gail mentioned. And then if we have time, we'll do, sorry about my dog, he's saying hello to someone outside, a lightning round. Okay, so with that, I'm going to share my screen and get to our beautiful slides and start our discussion. Bear with me. Okay, so my first question for you, for the panelists today, really relates to kind of the change in how we've all been living over the past year and a half or so. We're all spending so much more time at home, at our homes these days. I, for one, am still largely working from home. And I think that's really kind of refocused on everyone's attention on the key differences that design can make at home, especially lighting, because as we all know, lighting can really adjust how you feel about your home, your space, and the experience you're having in it. So I'm just kind of curious to know if the two of you have sort of, if the last year and a half has changed how you think about lighting and how you approach lighting, and even if you're hearing different things from clients with regards to lighting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's changed kind of how I think about lighting. You know, to me, one of the most glamorous things a home can have is natural light. And I think with all of us cooped up in our homes so much more, I think we understand the healing power that natural light has. And so to me, when you think about lighting a room, I think about layering in light. And, you know, I think in so many ways, the open floor plan has gone away, especially with the way we're all living right now, where you know, we have families or pets and we need to be able to get on Zoom calls or, you know, think and, you know, get into a think tank and not all be together all the time. And I think that plays a definite role in lighting, both with natural and then layering in artificial lighting and how that works and what you need as far as a work environment compared to what you like at home and the color temperatures and all those things play a role. So I think we've definitely had to rethink the way we approach things in design.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, you know, as people want more well-defined spaces versus that open floor plan that has been so popular over the last 10 years or so, we're thinking about how to define each individual space. And a big part of that is how do you punctuate the design of that particular room or space through lighting, because you know, lighting, I think, serves as not only a foundational piece, much in the way that wall color or even floor coverings do, where they really sort of set the stage for everything else in the space, but they're also really the jewelry of the space. And in addition to that, very few things, I think, serve as big of a function as lighting does in terms of not only providing and casting functional, usable light, but also imparting a specific mood to a space. And so all of that is something that we take into account every day, but more so now than ever before.
Are you all finding that, because I know, I mean, this is very personal, but are you finding that your clients are using certain spaces at different times of day than they previously were? And so that may change their lighting needs. Like, for example, I used to never sit in my dining room during the day, but now I spend the majority of my days in my dining room. And it has really affected the lighting scene setup that I need.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, people are using their spaces in multiple ways and more functions than they typically would. Or to your point, a dining room is no longer just a dining room. It's also command center for homework or a home office. And so as the daylight changes throughout the day, so does the artificial light and the way that that's used. And so what we're seeing in terms of technology a lot is also home automation and being able to set the way that the light changes throughout the day, or the artificial light at least. We can't control the natural sunlight quite as much, but yes, it's certainly an issue now that spaces seem to serve more than one function, more than they have in the past.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And I feel like we're living in a really great time right now because of all of the technology that's available, where before you go to Home Depot and grab a light bulb and it would work with the lamp. Now, even like when we're installing a project, the amount of different types of light bulbs we have to get is out of this world. But I think a lot of people are also paying attention to their circadian rhythm.
So true.
Technology out there that provides that, and different. So basically, there's even like light bulbs that you can get that change color temperature during the day, because in the middle of a work day when the sun is the brightest, you've got the coldest temperature and it's as bright as it can be. And then as the day goes on, the color temperature starts to warm, everybody starts to relax, you start to calm down. And that's what we experience every day, just like with the sun setting. But now technology is even offering us those solutions in artificial lighting so that we can all kind of live this circadian rhythm natural way.
That is amazing. I mean, that could really, again, change energy levels. It can affect concentration and focus. That's really kind of
well, and they've been actually doing that a lot in commercial spaces for a while now, but the technology is now coming available to where we can use it more and more in residences. And just like Paloma mentioned, in automation systems, yes, but then you can even now buy a light bulb that is battery controlled, that you can control like from your cell phone.
Amazing.
In any lamp. So the solutions are becoming more and more readily available, which is really incredible and fascinating to watch.
So just to dig it, I'm just really fascinated by this, Maria and Paloma, but these are bulbs that you're basically programming from your phone. Like you're saying, okay, at this time of day, I'd like it to shift, or do I have that right?
Yes. Well, it's already programmed to know. I think the extent of it, and I'm not a programmer, so don't call me.
Sorry. Yeah.
I think what you do is you set the time of day, and I think that it then works with, the place you are, but I actually think this is a great solution for parts and countries that don't get as much sunlight during certain times of year.
Absolutely.
It's probably a great solution for them.
Well, you can probably avoid getting the SADS, this seasonal affectiveness disorder that so many people seem to suffer from in the winter.
I totally
do,
get that.
yeah.
I noticed just last night that the sun was setting so much earlier, and I was like, here we go. Like my day is gonna get shorter, and it's gonna put more pressure to, maximize time outside and in the sunlight, but there are lighting solutions for that. Mm-hmm. Since we kind of jumped onto this topic, how else is technology sort of affecting how you're thinking about lighting at home? We've talked about sort of bulb technology and color shift throughout the day. But are there other ways that technology is sort of working its way into lighting design for you as designers?
I mean, absolutely, especially with the automation systems. I think that the trend that I'm seeing from clients is that we, probably about 5 to 10 years ago, everybody wanted all the automation and all the bells and whistles. And now I think people are the pendulum is swinging it. Most people come to me and they say, I want an automation system, but I want simplicity. I don't want to refigure it out every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So I am seeing automation, absolutely low voltage being done, both with new construction and with remodels. But I think as far as how that relates to lighting, I think it really helps us layer lighting where, you obviously need general task and accent lighting in pretty much every room, but it allows us to control it in a way that maybe we set scenes, but in very simplistic ways, so that throughout different parts of the day, for example, your dining room, we're looking at a dining room right now. Well, there's cans, there's pendant lights, and you can't see the sconces on the other wall, but you might want different levels of each of these types of lighting during the day in different ways. And so you can either preset that scene or you can do it in real time. But the struggle as a designer is always getting rid of all of the switches on the wall, right? We have a million switches.
Yeah.
Another thing I think that people are so incredibly conscious about now is just energy usage. And at this point, that idea is almost old hat. It's been around for a while, but you'll find that there aren't a lot of attractive decorative lighting solutions that embrace that technology. And so one of the things that I've done in some of the pieces that I've designed is thought about how do we incorporate LED technology into really attractive fixtures. And so like one of the designs, for instance, is this really chic downlight that could really be used in place of a recessed can. And it uses LED technology. And so basically, you don't have to fuss with it once it's installed.
That's amazing. I mean, for so long, LED was like, everyone knew that the advantages, but it was kind of a design no-no in terms of aesthetics. And for you to be up to your point, Paloma, to design fixtures that are attractive or easily concealed, that utilize that technology is wonderful.
Yeah, it's really neat what they've done with LEDs now, and that you really can't tell as far as color temperature anymore.
That's great.
Obviously, a range of different types of LEDs and how they accomplish that perfect color temperature.
That's amazing. Yeah.
I think, and a little hack, one thing to look for is it's one of the ways you can tell if it's a good quality, especially like in cans and things like that, is the way it dims.
You want to warm dim.
Awesome. Because I think you can tell sometimes when, like, for example, built-in cans, the way they dim is important.
Yeah, that's huge. That makes a big difference. Let's talk about designing fixtures, because both of you, as we've kind of mentioned, you not only design rooms that are beautifully lit, but you also design beautiful fixtures themselves. So when it comes to designing actual product, where do you find your inspiration? Where do you get started? Does form follow function, or do you have a beautiful idea and then you figure out how to make it work, or a little of both?
I think it really depends. More often than not, it's form following function, where I have the idea for a striking silhouette, or I see a shape or a motif or something, and that sparks the idea for a concept for a fixture. But there are also times when function leads the way, and you think about something that's lacking in the market that you as a designer wish you had access to, but it just doesn't seem to exist. So for instance, one of the designs that I'll be launching with Visual Comfort this season is a really beautiful picture light, and it's actually super sleek. And the idea was that we wanted to be able to illuminate whatever the piece of art was without detracting from it, by having, a really sort of imposing fixture, as pretty as picture lights can be. Ultimately what you want to focus on is the art itself. So we designed one that I think is really, really versatile, in that it can work in any setting with really just about anything. And it also happens to incorporate LED technology, but more often than not, it's really about just the idea for a shape or a detail or a material reference, and how that can come together. And then of course the wheels start turning. And so you think about how that might be a chandelier, for instance, and how do you then translate that idea into a sconce or a table lamp or whatever. But my inspiration for this first product offering or round introduction is really just my love of everything French, and more than any other sort of period, that French modern period of the 1930s through 50s, with some really striking silhouettes. And then there's also sort of a 70s vibe with some things that are executed in brass and have super sort of sleek, simple shapes, but they work really well in both traditional and contemporary environments.
That's exciting. Marie, how about you?
Yeah, I mostly get inspired by nature in pretty much all of my work. I think when I was starting to design light fixtures, I first just kind of drew off, what do I use every day? What are the favorite fixtures that I've used in my past, and why is that? So a lot of times it had to do with like the materiality. And so I love to think about how can I show light in unique and interesting ways? How can it not just be a bulb? Like, can it shine through something different, and can it reflect light in an unusual way? So those are kind of some of the things I think about. And then because so much of my work is inspired by nature, I love imperfection. So I'm looking for materials that have a little bit of rawness, a little bit of organic quality, that feel hand formed. That's one of the reasons I love working with Visual Comfort, because their materials are so fine, and are so trustworthy, you know, after working with them for, gosh, going on 20 years, Lord.
That's amazing.
You know, it's just a brand that I trusted, and it was exactly who I wanted to partner with. And I'm excited because this round I have a lot of wovens coming out, which is,
that is exciting.
I love using in my own work every day and bringing warmth through texture. So a lot of my work, texture is kind of the underlying element.
You know, I'm actually thinking about how both of your answers speak to an aspect of design that lighting can help bring to a room. So for Marie, from you, I'm hearing like texture and material. You know, you could have this whole room, but it might be lacking a certain, you know, texture or material that hasn't been used, and lighting is a great way to pull that in. And Paloma, from you, it's like maybe there's a certain design period that you want to speak to in a certain room. You have the function obviously needed, that you need a light there, but the lighting fixture itself allows you to kind of bring in inspiration from other periods. What about travel? When you're sort of out and about in the world, and before times, and hopefully again times soon, you know, do you see things from flea markets or antique shops, or, you know, are there sort of different places that have also kind of sparked an idea for a lighting fixture?
Absolutely. Yeah. In my previous life, when I actually traveled overseas, I think travel in general, as cliche as it sounds, is so incredibly inspiring, just allowing your eye to get out of its usual confines and to see things differently, to be exposed to even just different natural light. You go somewhere like Paris or Los Angeles, and the light there is just different than it is here in Houston.
Yeah.
And so that's reflected in the environments that you're in. And then of course you're walking in the streets and you may come upon a beautiful floor detail and some marble inlay, or some, like, you know, carved detail and some woodwork or whatever it may be. And all of that can spark inspiration. But particularly for me, before COVID, I was traveling to France at least twice a year to shop for my store and to shop for clients. And so I was constantly in the markets and around vintage and antique things, and, you know, really sort of honing my eye for that French aesthetic, and coming upon things that I found very inspiring in terms of shapes and material references, and just silhouettes and sort of influences that have made their way into this collection.
Marie, sorry, go ahead. I think I was about to speak over you.
I feel like Paloma covered so much of it. I love travel as well. But, you know, sometimes I just get inspired by like the quirkiest things kind of off the cuff, like, you know, a piece of hardware, or, you know, a lighting fixture, or just like texture that you see on something. So I feel like inspiration can come from anywhere.
It's more about sort of keeping your eyes and your mind open to it, rather than, you know, forcing some sort of journey.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, I honestly, personally, I just take pictures of everything, and I love to absorb and like learn about materials. And I just kind of keep it in this folder and then reference it from time to time. And when I'm looking to kind of design a new collection, or just get it re-inspired for a custom piece of furniture, you know, I think about things, and sometimes I think about them in completely different ways than when I first took the image. Like, for example, that piece of hardware we're looking at right now, like, how can that become a sconce, and how can I
love it.
Yeah. And I've even been inspired by jewelry makers.
Totally.
There's so much to be taken from that. And, you know, even Paloma mentioned earlier in the conversation that lighting can be like the jewelry of a space, and I couldn't agree more.
Well, it's, you know, it's great what you're saying, because, I mean, again, as travel has been restricted, to your point, you know, inspiration coming from anywhere. I almost wonder, and I've experienced some of this myself, having a little bit more time, you know, just a little bit more time to sort of process through what I'm seeing and what I have seen before. I almost feel like I have like more creative energy without sort of running around as much as we were maybe before. Mm-hmm. It's nice to be able to like sift through all of those photos, because I too take pictures of everything.
Yeah, I think this past year and a half has given us all a chance to kind of like rethink about even life in a whole new way, and kind of recenter with, you know, how we spend our time, you know, and who we spend our time with, and just the gratitude around that has been an incredible learning experience for me.
which in and of itself can be sort of a sense of, or, you know, kind of spark creative inspiration as well, which is great.
Absolutely.
So one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, and I wanted to ask you all about is, you know, this notion of sort of success in design often comes from having like a certain look or a certain style. And we see it happen all the time. But the two of you are both, you know, hugely popular, very well known, nationally, internationally known. And I think both of you have far risen above that idea of having like a look or a style. And instead, what I find kind of coming through both of your bodies of work is a real sense of warmth to your interiors in very different ways, and you know, across both of your portfolios. And I wonder how that sense of warmth, how that translates into lighting design, both fixtures themselves, but also just thinking about lighting within a room scheme.
Well, thank you for the kind words. It's actually very, very nice. Thank you. I mean, for me specifically, I feel like every house, every project I work on really is different from the next, because the client dictates so much of what that house is going to be, not to mention the architecture and the location and all of that. Most of our work isn't actually in Houston, where I'm based. We work all over the country. So depending on sort of the architecture and the locale, you know, the vibe might be very different from one house to the next. But I think the unifying sort of thread between all of my work is the idea of bringing together both modern and traditional elements in a way that feels really seamless, or the joining of seemingly disparate items or disparate things in a way that feels sort of cohesive and harmonious. You know, we might have a very traditional room like the dining room that was shown before with the chinoiserie paper and all of that, but we had some really graphic fabrics in that room, and those loop chairs on the ends there may seem super contemporary, but they're actually 1930s designs by Francis Elkins. So just that idea, that intersection of things that could go more abstract or more contemporary with really traditional things, or the introduction of a really organic material, you know, bringing in warmth through that. I love the idea of glamour, but I really work to not ever let that go too over the top, and bringing in things like textures and various materials that will keep it from doing that. You know, you don't want something that feels like a set, or that feels like it's not approachable or relatable or inviting. So thinking about, you know, how do we layer in that sense of warmth that you talked about, that sense of sort of, I don't know, I guess a personal sort of sense to that space that makes it the kind of room that you want to spend time in. And I think you can have a glamorous environment, but you can also make it very inviting at the same time by keeping things from going too far in one direction.
Yeah, I love that. I love the notion of having a little bit of that glamour, but yet still keeping it very personal and real.
Yeah, I love to say that each client gives me the opportunity to become a different designer, you know, and
I love that.
For me, it's boring to do the same thing over and over again.
Totally.
And I like doing more traditional things, and I like doing more contemporary things. So much of what I do is so interwoven into the architecture of each home, because I love getting involved into those details as well, and really kind of following through with the language that the architect started. And I think for me, it's really important that I don't want you to be able to kind of put a date on the spaces that we create. I want to create timeless, beautiful spaces that bring people to life and kind of improve people. And that's really what I wanted to bring to my light fixtures too.
Yeah.
That same sense of, you know, this reminds me of something from the past, but it's done in a fresh, modern way that makes it feel reinvented. And you can't quite put a time period on it, but it never feels like it's dated.
I love that. I love that. I think that is the perfect transition to ask you both to share a few more details with us about your upcoming collection. So Marie, why don't we start with you?
Well, I'm really excited about what is to come. First of all, our first launch was such a dream come true. I absolutely loved some of the fixtures that we came out with, and just the discovery process of designing with Visual Comfort team is so much fun because they have such a wealth of knowledge and experience. And they really, just help bring my ideas to life. So my new collection hasn't completely been photographed yet. So there's still some, yet to be revealed secrets, but these are some kind of very preliminary prototypes in the works. And like I mentioned before, even in my first collection, it was all about bringing unexpected materials to life. The sconce that you see on the right is one of my favorite collections coming out.
So cool.
It has different tones of wood finishes throughout this collection, and I love the way the white oak pairs with the antique brass.
I love that.
And I kind of capped it with a little bit of refinement by capping the shade both at the top and the bottom with just a little touch of the antique brass. And this collection has various chandeliers and different, and even a floor lamp that kind of come in different configurations that I'm very excited about, and even plan to put in my own living room. And then
on the sconce, is the shade, what's the material for the shade on the sconce?
It's a linen shade, white
Beautiful.
linen. Mm-hmm.
So pretty.
And, I think also just the fact that, again, going back to nature, my love for all things, deconstructed and kind of raw, kind of Axel Vervote is a huge inspiration for me in some projects. I wanted to introduce a lot of the kind of like Han Dynasty inspired lamps and textures. So the lamp that you see on the left is kind of like this old hand-formed pottery collection that you'll see coming out in different colors. That was actually inspired, you brought this up earlier, travel. I was inspired by this pot that one of my fellow designer stylists found at Round Top. And we kind of like reinvented it, changed the scale and the shape a little bit, and came up with some lamps from it. So
it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Really beautiful. I'm so excited to see more. This is a very, very early sneak peek, everyone. And Paloma, how about you?
Well, it's been some time in the making. We've been working on this for a little while now. And like Marie said, just such a dream to be able to partner with an incredible manufacturer like Visual Comfort, who has such a wealth of knowledge in their particular craft and has been around for as long as they have. It's somebody that we truly and genuinely work with on just about every project. So it felt like a very natural partnership. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of what inspired me for this initial collection was that sort of French modern aesthetic, and then even delving further into the future, our past, into sort of like that 70s aesthetic with some of these sleeker forms. I started out, actually, one of the first things I designed was this conical collection that we're calling the Orsay. Everything has a French name because I'm a Francophile, and that was really the impetus for my collection. But the Orsay family has all these conical shapes and shades, and we've executed it in a variety of different applications for table, floor, ceiling, and wall, and have not only like this round chandelier that you see here, but as we also have some linear pendants with the same shade shape, and then some really cool large scale conical lights that are super cool that you could use over a dining table. The collection that you see on the left hand side was born out of my love for just the hexagonal motif, as that sort of geometric motif that I find myself turning to quite often in my work. And we thought, how do you do something that's so recognizable and has been out there for so long, and you see in so many different ways, in a way that feels very fresh? So we really beefed up the shapes, and you'll find that both the table lamp and the floor lamp and some of the other pieces have like very substantial scale. So, really playing on the scale with that. And then on the right-hand side, you have the scones from the Contreras collection, and the idea of doing something that felt very sculptural. So it's on this sort of concave back plate that's three-dimensional. And then you have this beautiful ball detail that was inspired by a pair of Tommy Parzinger lamps that I have from the 1960s that I, really enjoy and have had for a long time. And we sort of reinterpreted that motif here. And this is also available in a variety of different applications. And we have, 2 different sconces and table lamps and chandelier and all kinds of things. So we're super excited to get it out there in the world. But this is a very sort of preliminary sneak peek, as Marie alluded to.
Yeah, racing against time to get a few assets to be able to debut here today. I'm loving seeing all the different materials, from wood to brass to ceramic. It's really an exciting time, I think, in product design, able to work with so many different materials. With that, I'm gonna see, let's see if we can see if we have any questions from the audience. And while we wait for audience questions to kind of trickle in, I have a very specific question before we get to audience questions and the lighting lightning round. And that is this came from, because I solicited lighting questions from our staff, and this was like universally, the Veranda staff wants to know, despite their wow factor, chandeliers can cast harsh light over a dining room table. Any tips for choosing chandeliers or their bulbs that keep things ambient and, shall we say, cast guests in a more generous light?
There's a lot of different things that you can do. If your bulbs are exposed and the chandelier, the silhouette itself lends itself to it, you can always add shades. You always have everything on a dimmer. I think that's every designer's hard and fast rule, is to have everything on dimmers. And then you can also use what's called a warm dim LED bulb. And so that, as you dim it down, will act just like an incandescent bulb would have. So you really can cast that beautiful sort of light. And then the other thing that you can do, if that's still too harsh and you want to create more of a vibe, is to choose something that illuminates the ceiling, that casts light up, rather than traditional chandelier casting it down. In fact, I have 2 like really cool oversized bowl fixtures that are coming out. They're not pictured here, but they would sort of light up. And so you'd have really beautiful light throughout the space without casting any harsh light onto anyone's face.
And creating like weird shadows. And
exactly.
That's really smart. I love that idea. Marie, any chandelier tricks?
Well, Paloma covered so many good ones. Another one that I've used before is you can buy those like wax dipped candles that they almost look like they're an actual lit flame. Those are kind of cool. But I just love how creative everybody is being right now with the shades and like the custom shade. Like I love how we've been introducing like different fabrics on shades and different patterns. So I think that there's so many great options that you can do to make sure that, nobody has any kind of harshness in their eyes. And there's so many bulbs out there. So for example, if you have a bulb that shines down, they also have it's like metallic dipped. I don't know what the exact terminology is, but
yeah,
it's got the metallic on the bottom, so you can't ever see the light, and you can buy those. And those are a great solution.
Yeah, mercury tip, I think it's called.
Cool. Speaking of shades, again, by the way, people, don't be shy, submit your questions. But one of my lightning round questions was, what's your best source for shades? Because I'm with you, Marie. I'm loving all the shades, but I have this new hunger for shades that I can't get enough. And I'm like, anyway, I'm just always looking for new sources. Any secret sources?
We've worked with a couple of different companies. There's one in Louisiana called Sorella Glen that does really pretty gathered shades, and then Slightly East, beautiful like ikat shades and some shades made out of like vintage saris and things. And then I even got a shade off of Etsy recently for my daughter's nursery, and it's the sweetest thing. It's like raffia, and it's got a little scallop shape that's has a contrast piping. So yeah, I mean, all kinds of unexpected places to find things.
Awesome.
There's also in Houston, Maison.
Yes.
Started doing not only the most beautiful wicker shades, but they have started doing custom shades so you can do COM, any fabric you want.
That's great. That's a great tip. Okay, we've got a couple of questions. The First is, do you have a personal favorite Kelvin range for lighting, i.e. warm and yellow, like incandescent, or cooler on the white or blue kind of spectrum? Or does it really vary by space?
I mean, my favorite's 2,700. I would not go more than 3,000. Unless you want it to feel like a hospital.
Yeah.
So that's so helpful.
Yeah, we're normally right in that range too. I feel like you never want to go too cool with lighting. It's just not flattering on one's skin, but you know, have to sort of be within a flattering range there.
That's great. This is another source question. What is your preferred place to buy light bulbs that offer a bunch of different variety? Because we've talked about a lot of specific bulbs here. But do either of you have a favorite light bulb source?
I'm trying to remember the name of the place that my team goes to. I want to say it's, not kidding, like Light Bulbs Unlimited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I've actually been to that site.
Yes, we're both in Houston, so we know that spot too. But there's also a resource that we use that we've used for a while, actually, called responsiblelights.com. It's one of the sales reps for Visual Comfort. He owns this company, and we just send them our list of whatever we need, like in terms of fixtures that are going into a house before our install, and they take care of all the guesswork and put the lighting order together for us, which is wonderful. It takes a lot.
Oh, that's so helpful.
Yeah,
that's a great resource. Okay, we're gonna move into some lightning round. We've already covered one. The next one is, is there a no-fail lighting rule that you swear by?
A no-fail lighting rule?
Yes. For example, you must always have every fixture on a dimmer, but we've already covered that.
I think layering your lighting, you know, you really need to have more than one source, especially as we've talked about during this panel, the fact that we're living in our homes a little bit differently than we were a couple of years ago. You need to have more than one source of light in just about every space to address your needs, especially as the day goes by.
So there you're talking like ceiling fixture, but also table lamp and possibly a sconce and that sort of thing.
Exactly. So, you know, in the morning as you're getting ready, you might have your overhead lights on, but then as you're laying in bed, reading a book before you fall asleep, you certainly don't want to have your overheads on. You would have, you know, your lamp dimmed down a bit just so that it was bright enough to read, but not so bright that it's keeping you awake.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yeah, and I think also considering that along with natural light and knowing how that's going to change your colors. You know, when you're designing a house, you need to consider like what kind of lighting is going to be in each room. Because if you look at the same piece of fabric under halogen, under LED, or natural light, the color of the fabric will completely change. And so I think it's really important, I think, and layering helps with that. But also keeping that into consideration and that how that's going to change throughout the day.
That makes a lot of sense. Someone has asked if you can repeat the source for custom lampshade sources. And I think, Marie, this was maybe your answer for Maison in Houston.
Yes, yes. Because we had our upholsterer do it a couple times and now they refuse to do it. So they're like, this is too hard. We're not doing this anymore. So yeah. Happy to find out about Maison and they just do beautiful things. And I'm sure anybody from all over the country could order from them.
Yeah, smart. Okay, how about a quick fix for adding ambiance to either a brightly lit room or a dimly lit room?
I mean, you can never go wrong with a dimmer. I feel like you need to have the table lamps on dimmers, and whether it's a bright room or a dark room, and you just sort of embrace what that room is giving you. You can't make a super dark room super light and bright necessarily, but you can manipulate the light that's there in order to really sort of create a vibe that feels appropriate and engaging.
Yeah, and I say, like, I can never have too many sconces. I just love sconces, and I love what you can do with them. I love them on bookcases, on walls, an art light. But then another trick I like to do is switching lamps so that have warm lamp light, but you don't have to go around the room and like switch every lamp on. If you kind of plan it out, either like a hot plug that's attached to a switch, and think about that, you know, in your planning process, so that way everything's located at the same place. And, you know, switches are another way to kind of add ambiance and how you control your lighting. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of Forbes and Lomax with like the antique brass switching. It kind of has this historic feel. And even Lutron has just come out with called the Elise collection, and it's kind of a competitor to Forbes and Lomax. It's a little bit more contemporary. You can pick it in any metal finish, and you can coordinate that with your decorative light fixtures, which I think is really pretty.
I love that. And I love the idea of putting table lamps on switches. That would really, because it's like, oh God, we got, like right now I'm looking at another room where there's one on and one, and it's like, what is happening?
I'll do you one better. You can put them all on timers, and then you don't have to think about it at all.
Brilliant.
Everything on timers at a cost.
Especially like when you're working with an architect who can't stand can lights.
Yeah.
So it kind of creates this interior design conundrum of, okay, well, I got to make sure that we have enough light in each room if you can't depend on can lights.
That's
another trick that we're doing a lot lately is trimless cans. Doing those all day, every day, which just means like your plaster gets butt up directly to the hole that the light is in.
That's huge.
And we're doing that both in like plastered ceilings, but then wood ceilings where the wood comes all the way up to the opening and you don't have that like 2-inch ring around that you have to like faux paint every time.
Totally.
They're definitely a little bit more expensive, but it's a beautiful look.
That's really smart. I love that. I love that. Okay, another question. How do you combine the beauty of candles with lamps and overhead lights? Is there a good mix? And I'm wondering if is there a good mix is sort of a good ratio or something?
I mean, I think it's always a good mix. I can't think of a time when it wouldn't be a good mix. I just think candlelight is so beautiful. I would just say like, be safe about it.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I love using candles. I love mixing candles in with especially during the holidays and the holidays coming up. And one thing I love to do when I decorate for the holidays is like put garland in, like weave it into my chandeliers. I even have a comfort chandelier where I like weave garland throughout. And of course have candle accents everywhere. But no, I love the mix.
Yeah, I think if you're entertaining, you definitely want to turn your overhead lights down, or if not off. Chandeliers, decorative fixtures, just dim them down quite a bit. No recessed cans, and then the rest can be lit by candlelight. And I think that creates a really beautiful glow and a festive mood.
We just closed our holiday issue at Veranda, and we have this really fun feature. Here's a little sneak peek from Veranda. Really fun feature where we interviewed a lot of people about their entertaining secrets, and someone said, and this is I'm paraphrasing here, but you could even have a party at 7-Eleven if you had candlelight. I'm channeling that.
That's so true.
I love it.
You know what's so funny is like that is what we're trying to replicate, right? Like we're trying to replicate this, you know, candlelight and natural sunlight.
Yes.
We're kind of reimagining nature in an artificial way. And I think the closer we get, you know, the more it speaks to who we are as human.
I love that, Marie. I love that. We're going back to our origins in this very sort of technological way.
Yeah.
Okay, someone's asking, this is a great question. Can you retrofit rimless can lighting with original can lights?
I think you can. You just have to get what's called a remodel can, I think is what they call it.
Okay.
And I think those, but they're big, and it does, I mean, speak with your builder to know for sure, but it's not a small process. You're basically ripping holes in your ceiling to put in this remodel can and then having to kind of like re-sheetrock.
Could be worth it. And then can you give the name of the light bulb sources? I think, Paloma, you mentioned.
Oh, it's a company called responsiblelights.com, I believe.
And then Marie also had, was it Lights Unlimited or Light Bulbs Unlimited or something like that?
Yes, I think it's Light Bulbs Unlimited. Yeah. But then if they're asking about the circadian rhythm lights, that company's called, like, I think it's called Ketra.
Oh, yes. Okay. Okay. What about a lighting design trend prediction? Like brass is back, or some sort, any other sort of trend prediction?
Good question. We have a lot of white and brass coming up.
Ooh.
And textured white. I think that's kind of like a timeless that kind of goes so much. I think I've been seeing, not in my own collection, but in others' collections, I'm seeing a lot of like matte black.
Ooh, I also love that. That's exciting.
Yeah, we're seeing
woven's really big and coming back.
wovens. Yeah, I feel like that's everywhere.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, Paloma.
No, I was just saying wovens are everywhere. I feel like I'm seeing a ton of that, especially now in like the lighting space. Things that feel sort of organic seem to have a really big moment now. And then I personally would love to see, brass sort of stick around. And I like the idea of maybe a polished brass coming back, and that's really difficult to execute. Not like 1980s gross polished brass, but like really, really refined in some big forms.
That would be beautiful. Okay, last and final question. No home is complete without ... Fill in the blank.
Beautiful lighting, obviously. And a dog. I think every house needs a dog.
I would say a dining table, because that's where so many memories are made, and that's where you gather with your loved ones and are surrounded by all this beautiful lighting. And I think, the heart of the home is the kitchen, and I think that's where so much happens.
Long live the dining table. I love that, Marie. I think dining rooms are coming back because everyone's realized how useful they are.
I know, right?
It's another surface. It's like, anyway, but first you have to have walls, not an open floor plan to sort of cordon off your dining room. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. This was really fun. Thank you to Marie and Paloma, and thanks to all who submitted great questions. And this was so fun and so very useful. And congratulations on your beautiful collections.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Take care. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.